what do you have for us in critical thinking?
Well, I saw an article that I'm hoping you will read through and see the flaws in as fast as I did. The article essentially said that the American stock market, the S&P 500, was one of the worst places to put money over the last decade, and therefore it is positioned to be the best investment over the next decade. So while it's probably true it was not a very good place to put money over the last decade, the causality of the last decade being bad does not lead me to the conclusion that the next decade will be good.
Here's one case. Japan is down 75% over the last 2 decades.
That's right.
So that didn't hold true.
Yeah, so that didn't hold true for them. So we've got a case where it didn't hold true. In fact, I pulled it up on the iPad here. You can see that in 1970, Japan started growing, and then it spiked up and had a huge boom. And in 1990, the Nikkei was at 40,000. And in 2000, the Nikkei was at 20,000. And today, 20 years after the 40,000, we're down under 10,000.
So every decade, it's half its value.
It's cut in half every decade. And of course, you know, the NASDAQ.
Oh, it's at a 50% drop over the last decade.
Yeah, the tech
half its
stock
value is gone.
The tech stocks ran up to 5,000. The NASDAQ market was at 5,000, and then it fell, and now it's at under 2,500. It's like 2,200.
I think it just reached 2,300.
2,300.
But
so
yeah,
it's
half.
Yeah, so it's over half its losses. So when you think of logic and reasoning, when somebody says the last decade was bad, so the next decade will be good, there are plenty of scenarios where that doesn't have to come true. So when you're hearing somebody say that, the first thing you want to ask, at least the way I think of things, is that sounds like a sales pitch. And if it sounds like a sales pitch, it probably is. I won't speculate on the motivations of the person writing this, but I'm willing to bet they were selling equities, and that's the business they were in, so they were trying to spin it as best they could. Broad generalizations like this are basically useless. You know, the last decade was bad, therefore nothing.
This one's going to be great.
Yeah, but therefore nothing.
Oh,
the
okay.
last decade was bad. If you're trying to think about things will happen in the future, that's not enough information to use logic and reasoning to find out what will happen in that foggy future. You have to be thinking more about why would the next decade be good.
Look for data.
You're right. Data and evidence and thinking
generalization.
through it. Use your critical thinking skills to use logic and reasoning to get through it. And so when you see an article like that, or I saw an article like that, the first thing I thought of was, wow, this is a horrible example of, or a good example of horrible thinking.
And the takeaway?
The takeaway is, when somebody gives you a broad generalization, think to yourself, why do you think this way, and where's their reasoning and logic?